The galaxy was vast, but peace was fragile. Humanity had barely survived its first encounters with the Xylith Empire, a civilization of towering, silver-skinned aliens whose culture revolved around honor and mysticism. For decades, mistrust simmered between the two species, each convinced that the other sought dominance. Yet, when the Vorith horde emerged from the void, a relentless swarm of biomechanical predators, they were forced to form an uneasy alliance. It wasn't friendship, it was survival. Captain Elias Drake stood at the edge of a jagged asteroid field, his helmet visor reflecting the cold light of distant stars. His squad, 4 hardened soldiers clad in battered armor, waited silently behind him. They were on a reconnaissance mission, tasked with mapping potential Vorith movements. But something felt off. The silence here was too heavy, like the calm before a storm. "Sir," Corporal Mara whispered over the comms, pointing toward a faint trail of debris drifting lazily through space. "That doesn't look natural." Elias squinted, adjusting the magnification on his visor. Sure enough, shards of metal glinted among the rocks. Alien symbols etched into the wreckage confirmed what he feared most. This was Xylith tech. He exchanged uneasy glances with his team. What had happened out here? Curiosity outweighed caution as they followed the trail deeper into the asteroid field. Soon, they stumbled upon the source, a damaged escape pod embedded in a chunk of rock. Its hull shimmered faintly, pulsing with residual energy. The hatch was cracked open, revealing darkness inside. "Stay sharp," Elias ordered, drawing his plasma rifle. He climbed cautiously into the pod, his boots clanging against the metallic floor. Then he saw her. She lay slumped against the wall, her silver skin pale and streaked with crimson blood. She was unmistakably Xylith, tall even while seated, with angular features and luminous blue markings glowing faintly on her face. Her regal attire, though torn, bore intricate patterns signifying high rank. A princess, maybe, or worse, a diplomat. "She's alive," Elias muttered, checking for a pulse. Weak, but steady. Mara peered over his shoulder, frowning. "What do we do, sir? Bringing her back could start a war." Elias hesitated. The orders were clear. Avoid contact with Xyliths unless absolutely necessary. Saving her would mean risking everything, for nothing guaranteed she'd even thank them. Still, something stirred within him. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was defiance. Whatever it was, he couldn't leave her to die. "We're taking her," he said firmly, scooping her up despite her weight. "If we don't, we're no better than the monsters hunting us." His decision sparked murmurs of dissent among the squad. Some argued it was reckless. Others whispered about betrayal. But none dared challenge their captain outright. As they secured her onto a stretcher and began the journey back to their ship, one thought lingered in everyone's minds. What happens now? Little did Elias know, saving this mysterious alien would change not only his life, but the fate of 2 warring species forever. The hum of the human vessel was unfamiliar to Princess Lyra Valen as she stirred from unconsciousness. Her body ached, and her mind felt foggy, like waking from a dream that refused to fade. The air smelled strange, metallic and sterile, and the dim lighting stung her sensitive eyes. For a moment, panic seized her. Where was she? Who had taken her? Her memories came rushing back in fragments. The ambush on her flagship by Vorith forces, the desperate escape into the pod. And then, darkness. She clenched her fists, trying to sit up, but pain shot through her side, forcing her back down. That's when she noticed the figure standing near her bed. A human. He wore plain military fatigues, his face shadowed by the soft glow of a nearby monitor. His expression was unreadable, neither hostile nor friendly. To Lyra, he looked ordinary, almost unremarkable compared to the towering warriors of her own kind. Yet there was something about him, a quiet strength in the way he carried himself, that unnerved her. "Stay still," he said in halting Xylith, his accent heavy but understandable. "You're injured." Lyra glared at him, her pride flaring despite her weakened state. "Where am I?" she demanded, switching to Galactic Standard, the universal language shared across species. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her fear. "You're safe," the man replied. "For now. My name is Captain Elias Drake. We found your escape pod drifting in an asteroid field." "Safe?" Lyra spat, her tone sharp with disbelief. "I'm aboard a human ship. How dare you claim I'm safe?" Elias didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned closer, meeting her gaze directly. "If we'd left you out there, you'd be dead. Or worse, captured by the Vorith." His words struck a nerve. Lyra fell silent, her anger warring with the truth of his statement. She hated admitting it, but he was right. Without their intervention, she wouldn't have survived. Still, accepting help from humans went against everything she'd been taught. They were savages, invaders who cared only for themselves. Weren't they? "I don't need your charity," she snapped, turning her head away. "And I certainly don't trust you." "That makes two of us," Elias muttered under his breath, earning a glare from Lyra. He sighed, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "Look, Your Highness. How do you know who I am?" She interrupted, suspicion flashing in her glowing blue eyes. "We checked your insignias," he admitted. "Princess Lyra Valen, heir to the Zalith throne. Congratulations, you've got quite the bounty on your head." Lyra stiffened. Bounty? Did he mean to turn her over to the highest bidder? The thought made her stomach churn. But before she could demand answers, Elias continued. "We're not going to sell you off or hand you over to anyone," he said firmly. "Saving you wasn't part of some grand scheme. It was instinct. Call it stupid if you want, but I couldn't leave you to die." His honesty caught her off guard. For all her training and royal upbringing, Lyra wasn't prepared for this. Kindness from someone she'd always considered an enemy. Still, suspicion lingered. "I refuse your medicine," she declared stubbornly. "Your primitive treatments will poison me." Elias rolled his eyes, clearly losing patience. "Fine. Bleed out then. See if I care." But later that night, as Lyra lay awake, staring at the ceiling, she began to reconsider. Her wounds throbbed painfully, and she knew ignoring them would only make things worse. Reluctantly, she pressed the intercom button beside her bed. "Captain Drake," she called out, her voice softer this time. When he appeared moments later, she swallowed her pride. "Perhaps your methods aren't entirely useless." Elias smirked, though his eyes softened. "Glad to hear it. Now hold still. This might sting." As he tended to her injuries, Lyra watched him carefully. There was no malice in his touch, no hidden agenda. Just determination. And maybe a hint of hope. For the first time since being rescued, she allowed herself to wonder. Could humans really be more than monsters? The question lingered in her mind long after he left, planting seeds of doubt and curiosity that would grow in the days to come. As the days passed, Princess Lyra's recovery became a delicate dance between pride and necessity. Though her wounds were healing thanks to Elias' persistence and Earth's advanced medical technology, her distrust of humanity lingered like a shadow. Yet with each passing hour, small cracks began to form in her armor of prejudice. Elias often visited her makeshift quarters aboard the ship, bringing updates on their journey back to Zalith space. At first, their conversations were terse, filled with awkward silences and guarded remarks. But over time, curiosity got the better of both of them. Lyra started asking questions about human history, culture, and even their wars. Elias answered honestly, sharing stories of resilience, sacrifice, and hope. One evening, as the ship drifted through the endless void, Elias brought up something that had been troubling him. "You mentioned an ambush before you escaped," he said cautiously. "What happened out there?" Lyra hesitated, her glowing blue markings dimming slightly, a sign of unease among her kind. Finally, she spoke. The Vorath attacked without warning, targeting our Cytherium mines. They knew exactly where to strike. Cytherium. Elias frowned. The name sounded familiar, but he couldn't place it. It's sacred to my people, Lyra explained. It powers our technology and fuels our spiritual rituals. Without it, we would lose more than resources. We'd lose ourselves. Elias nodded slowly, piecing things together. And the Vorath want it for themselves. Worse, Lyra said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They plan to weaponize it. If they succeed, entire civilizations will burn. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Elias leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Why didn't your fleet stop them? Aren't the Zealoths supposed to be the strongest force in this sector? Lyra's expression darkened. She looked away, her fingers tracing the edge of the blanket draped over her lap. Not everyone in my empire agrees with this alliance, she admitted reluctantly. Some believe humans are expendable. That if the Vorath take what they want from us, they'll leave the rest alone. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected betrayal within the Xylith ranks, but hearing it confirmed was another matter entirely. So you're saying some of your own people might have helped the Vorath attack you? I can't prove it, Lyra replied sharply, her pride flaring again. But I know betrayal when I see it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The implications were staggering. If factions within the Xylith Empire were colluding with the enemy, then the fragile peace between humans and Xyliths was teetering on the brink of collapse. Worse still, the Cytherium crystals could already be in Vorath hands. We need to act fast, Elias said finally, his voice firm. If the Vorath get those crystals, it's game over, for all of us. Lyra met his gaze, her eyes blazing with determination. Then we must stop them, together. Elias raised an eyebrow. You're willing to trust me now? I don't have a choice, she admitted, though her tone softened. Besides, you saved my life. For now, that's enough. Over the next few hours, they devised a risky plan. Using stolen coordinates from intercepted Xylith transmissions, they would track down the remaining Cytherium mines and secure them before the Vorath could claim them. Lyra insisted she was strong enough to join the mission, arguing that only she could decipher the ancient seals protecting the mines. Elias reluctantly agreed, knowing they'd need every advantage they could get. As they prepared to disembark, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything, not just for him and Lyra, but for both their species. Somewhere deep inside, he hoped they weren't walking into a trap. But one thing was certain. Whatever lay ahead, they'd face it side by side. The stars outside the viewport seemed colder than ever, yet somehow, amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope remained. The journey to the Cytherium mines was anything but smooth. Elias and Lyra traveled aboard a small reconnaissance shuttle, accompanied by two members of Elias's squad, Corporal Mara and Private Jax. The atmosphere inside the cramped vessel was tense, with distrust lingering between the humans and their alien passenger. Lyra sat silently in the corner, her silver skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. She had insisted on wearing her own armor instead of human gear, a subtle reminder that she wasn't fully comfortable relying on them. Her presence unnerved the others. Even Mara, usually calm under pressure, kept glancing at her warily. Elias tried to bridge the gap during the flight. How far are we from the first mine? He asked Lyra. Less than an hour, she replied curtly, studying a holographic map projected above her wrist device. But the terrain is treacherous. If we're not careful, the Vorath will detect us long before we reach it. Jack snorted from the cockpit. Great, just what we needed, a death trap. Quiet, Elias snapped, shooting him a warning glance. He turned back to Lyra. What about these seals you mentioned? How do they work? They're ancient barriers, Lyra explained, her tone softening slightly as she spoke of her people's history. Only those trained in Xylith traditions can unlock them. Without me, you'd never access the crystals, even if you managed to survive the journey. Her words carried both confidence and vulnerability. For all her regal bearing, Elias could see the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her entire species. When they landed near the mine, the reality of their mission hit hard. Jagged cliffs loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Strange, metallic plants swayed in the toxic wind, their roots embedded in veins of shimmering catherium ore. It was beautiful and deadly. "This place feels wrong," Mara muttered, clutching her rifle tightly. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Lyra said grimly. "The Vorath have eyes everywhere." Their progress was slow and cautious, every step fraught with danger. Twice, they narrowly avoided ambushes set by biomechanical drones patrolling the area. Each encounter left them more battered and exhausted, but Lyra refused to retreat. Instead, she pushed forward, her determination unwavering. At one point, disaster struck. A hidden explosive buried beneath the ground detonated as Jax stepped too close, sending debris flying in all directions. In the chaos that followed, Lyra shielded Elias from falling rocks, nearly collapsing under their weight. When the dust settled, Elias stared at her in shock. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "Yes, I did," she replied, brushing off his concern. "You saved my life once. Now we're even." Her unexpected act of bravery forced Elias to confront his growing feelings of admiration and guilt. Admiration because she was proving herself braver than he'd ever imagined. Guilt because he wondered whether saving her had been worth risking his teens' lives. Later that night, as they huddled around a makeshift campfire, tensions boiled over. Mara confronted Elias directly. "We're out here risking everything for her," she hissed. "What happens when this is over? Do you think she'll remember us, or toss us aside like trash?" Elias didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Lyra, who sat apart from them, staring into the flames. Despite her strength, there was loneliness in her gaze, a reflection of the burden she carried alone. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Elias said finally. "For now, we stick together." Mara frowned, but didn't argue further. As silence fell over the group, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that their bond, fragile as it was, might be the only thing keeping them alive. And somewhere deep inside, he hoped it would last long after the mission ended. The stars above twinkled coldly, indifferent to their struggles. But amidst the trials, a flicker of trust began to grow. One step closer to unity. The Catherium mine stretched before them like a gaping wound in the earth, its shimmering veins pulsing faintly with an otherworldly glow. The air was thick with tension as Elias, Lyra, and the rest of the team approached the entrance. It was eerily quiet, too quiet for a place so strategically valuable. Every instinct screamed at Elias that something wasn't right. "This feels like a trap," Corporal Mara whispered, her rifle scanning the shadows around them. "It probably is," Elias replied grimly. "But we don't have a choice." Lyra stepped forward, her posture rigid despite her lingering injuries. She held up her wrist device, projecting a holographic interface that glowed softly against the dim light. Her fingers moved swiftly over the controls, deciphering the ancient seals guarding the mine's entrance. The symbols shifted and rearranged themselves, unlocking with a low hum. Before they could celebrate, a deafening roar erupted from above. A fleet of Zalith warships descended rapidly, their sleek forms cutting through the toxic haze. Elias cursed under his breath. They weren't alone. "Who are they?" Mara demanded, raising her weapon. "They're my people," Lyra murmured, her voice heavy with dread. She recognized the insignia on the lead ship. It belonged to General Calvorn, a zealous military leader known for his hatred of humanity. The ships landed nearby, and soldiers poured out, surrounding the group. At their head stood General Cal himself, a towering figure clad in ornate armor, his silver skin marked with jagged scars. His piercing gaze locked onto Lyra, then flicked dismissively toward Elias and his team. "Princess Lyra," Cal said coldly, his tone dripping with disdain. You disgrace your title by consorting with these savages. Elias stepped protectively in front of Lyra, his hand gripping his plasma rifle. We saved her life, he shot back, his voice steady despite the odds. If you're here to thank us, you're doing a terrible job. Kale sneered. Saved her? Or used her as bait to steal our Catherium? You humans are all the same. Greedy, deceitful parasites. Lyra stepped forward, her regal bearing returning as she faced her accuser. Enough, Kale. These humans risked everything to help me. If not for Captain Drake, I'd be dead, or worse, in Vorith hands. Then you fallen prey to their lies. Kale barked, pointing an armored finger at Elias. They care nothing for peace or honor. Their kind only seeks power. And now they've turned you into a traitor. The accusation struck a nerve. Lyra's glowing markings flared brightly, signaling her anger. How dare you question my loyalty? I am still your princess, and I demand respect. But Kale wasn't listening. With a wave of his hand, his soldiers raised their weapons, aiming directly at Elias and his team. Take the princess into custody, he ordered, and eliminate the humans. Chaos erupted. Mara and Jax opened fire, forcing the Xylith soldiers to scatter. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward the mine's entrance. We need to move, he shouted over the cacophony of blasts and shouts. Lyra hesitated, torn between duty and survival. Then, with a sharp nod, she followed him inside, sealing the entrance behind them using the ancient locks. The tunnels were dark and narrow, the walls lined with veins of glowing Catherium. Their footsteps echoed loudly as they ran deeper into the labyrinth. They'll follow us, Lyra warned, her voice trembling slightly. Kel won't stop until he has me. And the crystals. Elias clenched his jaw, determination hardening his features. Then we'll make sure he doesn't get either. As they fled, Lyra grappled with conflicting emotions. For years, she had believed humans were unworthy of trust. Yet here she was, running alongside one who had risked everything for her, not just once, but repeatedly. Her heart ached with guilt and gratitude. And for the first time, she questioned whether her own people truly deserved her allegiance. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Time was running out, and betrayal loomed closer than ever. But amidst the danger, one truth remained clear. Elias and Lyra were stronger together than apart, and that bond might be their only chance at survival. The tunnels ahead were dark, but somewhere within them lay hope, and perhaps redemption. The tunnels of the Catherium mine twisted like veins through the earth, their walls glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Each step echoed ominously as Elias, Lyra, and the remnants of his team raced deeper into the labyrinth, pursued relentlessly by General Kel's forces. The air was thick with tension and the acrid scent of burning metal from stray plasma shots fired behind them. We can't keep running forever, Mara panted, clutching her side where a glancing blow had singed her armor. They'll catch us eventually. Elias didn't respond immediately. His mind raced, piecing together fragments of information Lyra had shared earlier about the ancient seals protecting the mine. There had to be a way to use them, not just to secure the Catherium, but to ensure no one could claim it. Not the Vorith, not Kale, and certainly not anyone who sought to exploit its power. Lyra, he said sharply, turning to her, you said these seals can collapse the tunnels. Can you trigger them manually? Lyra hesitated, her expression torn between resolve and fear. Yes, but someone would need to stay behind to activate the mechanism. Once it's triggered, there's no escape. Silence fell over the group like a heavy curtain. The weight of her words settled on all of them, each person grappling with the implications. Sacrifice was inevitable, but who would bear the burden? I'll do it, Lyra said finally, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. It's my duty. My people created this mess. I should clean it up. No, Elias snapped, stepping closer to her. Absolutely not. You're too important. If Kale gets his hands on you, he'll twist your title into a weapon against both our species. "And what about you?" Lyra shot back, her glowing markings flaring with defiance. "Do you think I don't know how much you've risked for me? For us? Let me finish this, Elias. It's the only way." Before he could argue further, she turned away, her silver hair catching the dim light as she moved toward a control panel embedded in the wall. Her fingers hovered over the glowing symbols, ready to initiate the sequence. Elias acted without thinking. In one swift motion, he grabbed her arm and pulled her back, shoving her toward Mara and Jax. "Get her out of here," he barked at them. "Now." "What are you doing?" Lyra screamed, struggling against Mara's grip as she tried to return to him. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the dust and grime. "You can't." "I'm finishing this," Elias interrupted, his tone firm yet gentle. He locked eyes with her, memorizing every detail of her face, the sharp angles softened by emotion, the fierce determination mingled with vulnerability. "You gave me hope, Lyra. Now let me give you a future worth fighting for." Without waiting for a response, he activated the seal mechanism, the ground beneath him trembling violently as the system came online. Alarms blared, red lights flashing along the tunnel walls. Behind him, Cal's soldiers shouted orders, their footsteps growing louder as they closed in. "Go," Elias yelled one last time, his voice cracking under the strain of holding back his own emotions. He watched as Lyra disappeared around a bend, her cries fading into the distance. The collapse began moments later, a deafening roar as the Catherium veins destabilized, sending chunks of rock crashing down. Dust filled the air, choking everything in sight. Elias braced himself against the wall, shielding his face as the world around him crumbled. And then, silence. When the dust cleared, Elias lay sprawled on the ground, battered but alive. Miraculously, part of the tunnel had held firm, creating the small pocket that shielded him from the worst of the collapse. As he struggled to his feet, coughing and covered in rubble, he realized something unexpected. He hadn't done this for glory or revenge. He'd done it because Lyra mattered, to him, to her people, and to the fragile alliance they represented. Outside, Lyra stood frozen, staring at the sealed entrance. Her chest heaved with sobs, her fists clenched tightly. But when Elias emerged, limping but breathing, she ran to him, throwing her arms around him with such force that he nearly stumbled. "You idiot," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You reckless, stubborn idiot." Elias chuckled weakly, hugging her back. "Yeah, well, someone had to save the princess again." In that moment, amidst the ruins of betrayal and sacrifice, a new bond was forged, one stronger than any crystal. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The stars above twinkled faintly, bearing witness to a unity born from ashes. The journey back to the Zalith homeworld was a blur of exhaustion and reflection. News of General Cal's betrayal and his attempt to seize the Catherium crystals spread like wildfire across the empire. Public outrage erupted, fueled by evidence Elias had secretly recorded during their escape. The recordings revealed Cal's disdain for humanity and his willingness to sacrifice Princess Lyra for personal gain. Within days, his coup crumbled under the weight of scandal, leaving him stripped of rank and exiled. Lyra returned not as a fugitive but as a hero. Her survival and her alliance with Captain Ilias Drake became symbols of hope in a fractured galaxy. Standing before the Zalith Council, she delivered a speech that would change history. "The Voreth are not our only enemies," she declared, her voice echoing through the grand chamber. "Hatred and mistrust have weakened us from within. But today, I stand here alive because of one man, a human, who defied prejudice and risked everything to save me. If we continue down this path of division, we doom ourselves to destruction." Her words resonated deeply, sparking debates among her people. For the first time, whispers of cooperation with humanity began to replace cries for war. It wasn't easy. Centuries of animosity couldn't be erased overnight. But Lyra's vision planted seeds of change, inspiring others to question old beliefs. For Elias, returning to Earth was bittersweet. He was hailed as a hero, paraded through streets lined with cheering crowds. Yet, amidst the celebrations, he felt an emptiness gnawing at him. His bond with Lyra transcended species. It was something rare and profound. And though they were galaxies apart, he knew their connection wouldn't fade. In private ceremonies held on both worlds, Lyra bestowed upon Elias an honorary title, Guardian of Unity. It was more than a symbol. It represented the fragile yet growing trust between humans and Xaeliths. In return, Earth's leaders extended formal invitations for cultural exchange programs, marking the first steps toward lasting peace. Months passed, and communication between the two species increased. Scientists collaborated on technology, diplomats negotiated treaties, and ordinary citizens exchanged stories and traditions. Slowly but surely, barriers began to fall. One evening, Elias stood atop a hill overlooking Earth's sprawling cities, the night sky ablaze with stars. Among them, he imagined the constellation where the Xylith Empire resided. Closing his eyes, he could almost hear Lyra's voice, a mixture of gratitude, determination, and quiet affection. "You've done enough, Elias," she had told him before parting ways. "But this is just the beginning. Our work is far from over." Her promise lingered in his mind, fueling his resolve. Though they were apart, their shared mission united them. Together, they had ignited a spark, a beacon of hope in a once darkened galaxy. As Elias gazed upward, he allowed himself a small smile. Someday, perhaps, they would meet again. Until then, he vowed to carry forward what they had started, not just for himself or Lyra, but for future generations who deserved a world free of fear and hatred. The stars shimmered above, infinite and full of possibility. Amidst the vastness of space, a new chapter had begun, one written not in blood or war, but in courage, sacrifice, and unity. And somewhere out there, Lyra watched the same stars, knowing that together they had forged a brighter tomorrow.